best wishes to everyone here in Kodiak, and many of us miss her here. She's off gallivanting after retiring. So I want to give a really big thank you as well to our local steering committee. It was primarily local. We kept things tight this planning session, and we have some wonderful participants there on our steering committee. Julie Bonney, Robin Corcoran, Swidgard Dusterlow, Robert Foy, Pat Jacobson, Tom Lance, Teresa Peterson, Daniel Ringer, Nick Sabalkin, and Patrick Staltonstall have been very influential in getting this agenda lined up, and we do have a wonderful lineup, and I'm really excited about the program this year. If you grabbed the program book, or if you're looking online for information, our symposium donors are listed, and our steering committee is listed in the program book, as well as the session agendas. This year we did things a little bit differently. We decided as a steering committee to kind of integrate the talks and mix things up a little bit. So we stepped away from the standard oceanography, invertebrate fish walking up the trophic food chain to end at human dimensions. And we did that for a couple different reasons, but I think it'll be really successful, and we're excited with the lineup. So we did try to categorize some of the talks around these larger themes. In some cases they really fit, sometimes they didn't. So flow casually with us through the event, the conference. I think it works. I'm really proud of what we did. I want to thank everyone for their contribution to the event, including the speakers who have taken their time to come here and share their expertise. I really appreciate the support for this symposium, and I appreciate everyone's time. It's a big effort to make this work, and I appreciate people traveling in from out of town especially, and locally, because it's time out of our busy days. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of our attendees for supporting this event, and we will have people coming and going throughout, and we have a lot of word out to the community for invitation to come and at their leisure, free will. And I want to start this morning, and before I move on to the introductions, I encourage you to please turn your phones on silence mode. It's always very distracting to have interruptions. It might happen, but if you can take a moment now to check your phone, and I'm going to check mine as well because I'm one of the offenders. So with that, we're going to start with short introductions to Kodiak and the importance of marine science in Kodiak. We are a unique community. I think that much of our livelihoods, really come around this importance of the marine ecosystem. And we have a couple of people here to give us some introductory comments. I'm going to be introducing Dan Orr, our borough mayor, and Jeff Stevens. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dan. Dan, if you could come up. Dan has been our mayor since the fall of 2016, and I thank him for his tireless commitment to our community. I hear him on the radio almost daily, at least weekly, and they've put a lot of time and thought into our community, and I appreciate that, Dan.
Julie, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I want to tell you just a little bit about our community. Many of you are from here, or you've been here numerous times, so you already know about Kodiak, but I want to tell you some things. I was born and raised here, and I think I have a unique perspective, although some of you were born and raised here too, so you have that same unique perspective. But I want to welcome you. Welcome to the third Kodiak Area Marine Science Symposium. It's interesting, Kodiak, everybody says, oh, obviously Kodiak's all about fisheries, but I want to tell you some numbers that do show that it truly is all about fisheries. Kodiak has a population island-wide of about 14,000 people. We've been consistent at that number for, numerous decades at this point. Kodiak's typically ranked the last number of years third as far as ex-vessel fishing value, as far as fish across our docks. That's consistent over the years throughout the United States. But that doesn't tell the whole picture. In an awful lot of ports, as you well are aware, you'll have you may have a limited number of species in Kodiak. Our local fishermen, they fish at least 27 different fisheries, many different species. Ground fish, as many of you know, the way they're kept track of is just kind of as a fishery as a bulk, so it's a little harder for us to actually ascertain how many different fisheries that our fishermen are involved in. But we just had an economic study done by the McDowell Group to really try to put to paper exactly what the impact is to our Kodiak local community. You know, it's pretty interesting, 38% of all local jobs are directly related, either in seafood processing or direct fishermen, fisher persons. 38% of our working population is directly involved in that fishery. Indirectly, there's numerous hundreds more. The reality is our Coast Guard base has 1,000 active duty individuals on our Coast Guard base. It's not a big leap to argue that they're largely here in part, if not in whole, because of our local fishery. The local Coast Guard base actually has, I forget, it's 3,000 people that are represented, which is 25% of our entire population as a community. So when you look at our community, whether it be people directly catching fish, people directly processing fish, the Coast Guard base, it's a significant portion of our overall economy. Locally, from a tax point of view, the Kodiak Island Borough, we have a $6 million budget annually, 6.4 for our general fund. 1.6 of that comes directly from fisheries business taxes. In the city of Kodiak, $1.2 million comes to the city of Kodiak directly from those fisheries business taxes. So it's a significant impact on our ability as a local government to operate and function, having them here. Just a few more numbers, 650 permits, give or take a few, are currently held by local individuals for various fisheries in our community. Last year we caught 2 years ago actually, we caught 488 million pounds of seafood with a value of $151 million to our local fishermen. On top of that, our local processors then basically added value to that and sold it in the wholesale market for $325 million. For a community of 14,000 people, obviously that's a whole lot of money. When I look at some things that make it kind of unique about Kodiak though, is that fishery, what it creates for us, both benefits, like I said, in regards to the dollars that it generates and the economy that it generates, but it does generate some challenges, truthfully. And so, like, for example, and we don't deal with this as much on the borough side, but on the city of Kodiak side, the water infrastructure for KDA, the electrical infrastructure. So the water for Kodiak, for example, the city of Kodiak they have to generate 935 million gallons of water. Some months, 120 million gallons of water just for our fish processors. So if you look at Kodiak, 70% of our community is on local water and sewer, but on that local water. So, you know, what is that, 9,000 people, 10,000 people? The amount of water we use as a community is equivalent to a community of 100,000 people. So it creates an interesting challenge for our local city officials as they look at how to generate that much water for our local processors. Thankfully it rains here a lot, so you know normally it's not as much of a challenge. But KEA, most of you are well aware of Kodiak Electric Association. They've built the wind turbines and they have had a goal for years of being 98% renewable energy, and they've been able to accomplish that. But they've been able to accomplish that while our local processing fleet uses 1/3 of the overall demand for the community. So they've had to continue to generate and create peak demand, specifically so that when our processors, and they work in conjunction with our processors to set up systems for slow starts on equipment and things of that nature. But it's just interesting to me that as I look at our whole community, every facet is being impacted by fisheries. And I have 3 daughters, I was talking to my kids about it last night at dinner. And you know, the reality is it impacts every aspect of their life as well. So fundraiser dinners, for example, for kids in our community, you've got, you know, cod fish wrap dinners, you've got down at Crab Festival, you've got the local Catholic school sells crab legs to raise money, you've got a salmon dinner this weekend, halibut dinner a few weeks back. The track and field team did a spaghetti feed dinner, so I think they've got to find you guys need to find them a new fishery to use for their fundraising dinner. But anyways, it's interesting, my kids, I wanted to read you just a list of some things that they've got. You know, it's just interesting. Tsunami Bowl at the Kodiak High School, fisheries classes at the Kodiak High School, ocean science discovery program every year, touch tank visits, field trips to the various research labs at the various buildings. My kids went to salmon camp. They did salmon egg takes. They took those egg takes and raised the smolt in their classroom, released them into Mission Beach or Pillar Creek. They did tours of KRA's, Pillar Creek Hatchery. They learned a salmon song about the life cycle of a fish, which I won't sing to you because that would be painful for all of us. But it just has impacted every area of their lives. And so our community has not only just with the kids, but why we're here today and why we're here for the next 3 or 4 days is to talk about the science behind fisheries and behind our ecosystems, and I want to talk about that just briefly. The community of Kodiak is invested, the state is invested in our community. A couple research buildings on Near Island, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game's building a new building on Near Island. Our young people get an opportunity to tour those, get introduced to science at various different levels at those 3 facilities. It's just a great opportunity. The Coast Guard base is involved in the science behind it. You've got KRAA certainly involved in it. You've also got, I think I already said the Coast Guard base, but you've got local fish processors looking at ways to value add to their products. So just a tremendous amount of science going on in a community the size of Kodiak with only 14,000 people here. So why, I don't want to belabor too long, but why you're here today is to be able to talk, to be able to interact with each other over the next 3 or 4 days to talk about the science behind all of this. And what's interesting to me is I go to lots of different events, you've all been to them as well, whether it be senatorial debates or local political debates or just, and what do we always hear? You always hear, well, I don't really want to talk about that because we need to have good science behind that. We need to, what is the good science? And what you're here for over the next 3 or 4 days is to help provide us with what the good science is. So I look at it, and frankly, I get a little tired of hearing, well, we need good science, we need good science. There is a lot of good science. We still need more good science, and that's why you guys have dedicated your lives to the field that you're in, and I personally appreciate that. It came home to me yesterday when somebody asked me from off island, they Facebook messaged me and said, how do you feel about the Russian bombers being 100 miles from Kodiak? And I said, well, I had no idea there was Russian bombers 100 miles from Kodiak. And yesterday my conversations had nothing to do with Russian bombers being 100 miles from Kodiak. It was more questions like, where'd the cod go? Why are the jig boats not finding cod? Are we gonna have various different types of crab fisheries this year? How come the salmon return on pink salmon was so low last year? So it's really interesting. We have these nationwide events, so to speak, that are taking up the news media down below in regards to the Russian bombers being so close to Kodiak. But our local community, we're really concerned about what's happening with our fish. Are we going to be able to continue to sustain the fisheries that we've become involved in over the last decades? And literally, as far back as 1800s, when Kodiak had the first cannery in Kodiak. So we have a long, long history as a community with fisheries. And we want that to continue. It's economically vital for our community that it does get to continue, and that does rely on good science. And so, anyways, I'm encouraged that a group of people is willing to come to Kodiak, spend 3 days out of your lives and talk about that good science, whether it be, and I wrote down a list just for fun, for my own interest, you're going to talk about seabirds and global warming, whale mortality, seabird die-off, essential fish habitat, marine cleanup, science education for our youth, degrading of the commercial fishing fleet, and literally everything in between. I noticed just as I walked into this room, little pockets of people talking about different things that are going on within our ecosystems, and that's also part of what this is all about today and the next few days. So again, thank you for being here. I know it's beautiful weather. Make some time in the evenings to get out and enjoy it, and certainly enjoy question and answer periods, question the people that are presenting, learn from them. The presenters, I'm sure, will learn from you as well, and it's just a great opportunity for us as a community to learn from you guys. So thank you again for being here. Welcome to Kodiak. If you haven't been here before, it's like this every day, so enjoy it. Anyways, thank you, and again, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Jeff Stevens. Jeff is the director of the United Fishermen's Marketing Association and has worked for many, many years on fisheries issues that affect our community. Jeff is also the chair of the Alaska Sea Grant Advisory Committee, and he's amazing in our program as well. He's an amazing advocate of our program, and he's been on our board for many, many years. So, Jeff, come on up.
Dan's still here? There you are. So I spent about an hour getting all those same statistics together that you gave. So no, that's fine. That's great. I actually had said, but I was listening, and I thought, well, yeah, there's another one I'll cross off here. So, well, good morning. And my name is Jeff Stevens, and I'm very happy to be here and to help just give some welcoming remarks. I'm pleased to join Dan Drawer in welcoming you all here. This is a very important seminar, and it's nice that you folks have traveled, not only the presenters, but also those of you who are just coming to observe. Before I go any further, I'd like to recognize Julie McAdoo. Julie, as you know, is a Marine Advisory agent here in Kodiak, and she has a large suite of responsibilities, and one of those she took on is this Marine Science Symposium, which is a very large undertaking, and she has done a wonderful job with that, so I'd like to just recognize I'd like to also mention and recognize a few other folks that helped her. She would be the first one, actually, I'm sure, to ask to recognize Beverly Bradley, who is Alaska Sea Grant Program Coordinator. And Street Rose, who is working the front desk, and Street is the Alaska Sea Grant assistant to the Kodiak Marine Science Center. And so she's the assistant, the MAP, the Marine Advisory Program Assistant to the Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center. And I was going to mention the planning committee, but Julie already did that. So thanks to everybody. I'd like to also just recognize Kate Wynn, as Julie did, for her many years as a very valuable and engaged Marine Advisory Program agent, and for the work that she did, especially in the area of marine mammals. But she also put together the 2011 and the 2014 symposiums here, which was a huge undertaking, and so I'd like to just recognize her. It's too bad she can't be here with us. So I'd like to say just a few words then, since the statistics are all taken care of, about the National Sea Grant College programs. As many of you know, the National Sea Grant College program holds a very unique place within the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. An Alaska Sea Grant in itself holds a very unique role within the College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. They do a lot of work that is extremely important to the industry, to a cross-section of the industry, the population, to a lot of challenges that we have that normally wouldn't be addressed at the university level through the standard university structure. And so they do a tremendous amount of work and assistance and contribution. Now, Sea Grant, just for those, I'm sure you know this, many of you, but Sea Grant is a national university-based network of 33 programs that are located in every coastal and Great Lakes state, in addition to Puerto Rico, Lake Champlain, and Guam. So all of those folks, that makes up 33 national Sea Grant programs. Sea Grant engages academia and a wide variety of partners to address issues such as coastal hazards, sustainable coastal development, and seafood safety. And it concentrates its efforts on 4 focus areas, generally, that are judged to be of critical importance to the health, vitality, and the vitality of the nation's coastal resources and the communities. And these focus areas are healthy coastal ecosystems, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, resilient communities and economies, and environmental literacy and workforce development. And so all of the Sea Grant programs generally have to guide their programs and have their projects and their efforts kind of fall under these major programs. And they revise those every so often. All of the Sea Grant program directors get together with the NOAA Sea Grant office, and they talk about what's changing. But these are the ones now, and you can really put a lot underneath those, but at least there's some direction there. And then the grants that are applied for by the state Sea Grant programs have to fit within these categories, etc. Alaska Sea Grant does a wonderful job. It is one of the most productive programs in the country. It has received high marks from national evaluation efforts that evaluate all 33 Sea Grant programs. It supports training and support of the Alaska seafood industry, which many of you know. is heavily involved, as Julie's role here, in paralytic shellfish poisoning and in providing research and testing and techniques and just the development of how to best address this issue of paralytic shellfish poisoning. Julie has done a tremendous amount in that area. And there's lots of training to support the Alaska seafood industry. They sponsor graduate students. They recently interviewed applicants for approximately 6 tentative positions in the Alaska Sea Grant Fellows Program. Sea Grant a few years ago started a Fellows Program, and now they have 6 candidates who they've screened out of many more applicants. And these candidates now are trying to match up with different agencies and private organizations, and Sea Grant sponsors them for 1 year in partnership with the sponsoring entity. And this is very good because it trains people, it gets people in early on in the mold. It's a little bit different. Most of these people have graduate degrees, and so it's a little bit of a way to get them out into the field where they otherwise might not find a spot. Recently interviewed, they also have a very robust research program, Alaska Sea Grant, and they recently reviewed 45 proposals over the course of a few days, and there was fairly significant proposal review criteria that the review committee used. And they invited 15 of those proposals back for a full proposal review. So they're going to go forward with 15 and see how those fare it out. And I don't imagine they'll be able to fund all 15, but it's a competitive process, and they narrowed it down from 45 to 15. And it's a lot of work, but they're good topics, and they'll be of benefit. The HACCP training. So there's a couple activities, HACCP training that you just did that, didn't you? You just had one in March. The Kodiak Marine Science Symposium, which is going on now. The Western Alaska Integrated Science Conference in April, which is out in Alaska. There's several training programs for seafood processing employees, various levels, and there's a road training school that's coming up in April over here at the Kodiak Seafood Marine Science Center. The Wakefield Symposium in Anchorage in September, and the topic there is a very popular topic nowadays, is impacts of a changing environment on the dynamics of high latitude fish and fisheries. Another one of their very popular smoked seafood school at the Kodiak Seafood Marine Science Center here. They have a very popular seafood school, and then they have many different very advanced processor training programs that they put on so that we can help the processing industry train their employees in some technical areas that really make the processing industry a little bit more efficient. Sea Grant is a little bit under the gun as far as the federal budget goes. This year, last year, FY16, Sea Grant was funded with $73 million. 10 of that was designated for marine aquaculture. This year, they're operating under a continuing resolution. There hasn't been a clear budget. It's still kind of at the $73 million level, but the administration has requested Congress to modify that to $43 million, which I understand also includes $10 million. So that would go from lose $30 million, and which is a tremendous hit to the 33 programs across the country. And of course, there's a proportional designation there, so the distribution. So, and next year, the administration for FY18 has requested Congress not fund Sea Grant, so zero funding. And so the states would have to pick up that bill, which is a real tragedy. If in fact that happens, I don't presume that Sea Grant, that Congress is going to let that happen, because we have 33 states that have senators and congressmen, so that's a big beginning on a majority, and a lot of those people hold fairly significant positions in appropriations committees. So, am I running? Okay. So. I'm just going to make a couple of comments here. As you know, Kodiak is a maritime community. Our continued success and survival as a diverse and sustainable community that is able to support our economic, cultural, and social foundations. It's largely resource-based and therefore largely influenced by and dependent upon the manner by which we understand, measure, manage, and utilize our natural resources, and the natural and human dynamics that impact the productivity of these resources in the Gulf of Alaska, the Bering Sea, and the Aleutians and the Arctic Ocean. So I won't go through the statistics.